There's our lovely voice telling us it's recording. If for some reason my internet goes out and the screen goes blank, it's not you, it's me. My internet's been goofy the last couple of days. I think it's okay today. It was okay yesterday until the afternoon. Right in the middle of a client, like right in the middle, and it just went. So hopefully that won't happen. This is just an hour today. I had started doing this class like as a video and just posting it online, but I've decided to do it live today. I'm going to go over the assignments super quick, and I've actually made some pretty significant changes to a couple of things overnight. I've decided to change a couple of things, and so that's another reason why I'm recording this. So you can ask questions. I feel like I've had most of you guys before in other classes. The style of the class hasn't changed that much, but there's some I made a couple of changes that I think are just going to be better all the way around for the class. Some of it's based on feedback from other students from this class, and then one of them is just a change I made just because it's summer and the summer's weird because people are traveling and I'm traveling, and so I wanted to make a little bit of adjustment to a couple of things. So you'll see on Moodle, the schedule is heavy at the beginning, kind of heavy assignment wise, and then it kind of tapers off. I'm going to actually adjust a couple of things to relieve some of that. But having said that, I want to jump in to a couple of things. So I need to go over here to my. How's everybody doing today? Everybody excited? Everyone excited? No one's excited.
Excited for the summer.
Yeah. Okay? Is anyone doing anything really cool, like going somewhere like super cool? Where are you going, Rosa? Where are you going?
Next Friday we are leaving to Spain and Italy.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's why I sent you an email. So
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So we were planning this for 2 years, like before COVID. So we had to just.
That's awesome.
Until now, yeah. So.
And just so you know, Rosa, the adjustments I'm making to the class are not gonna. I don't think it's gonna hinder you because I'm gonna actually adjust. The big assignment change is actually not due till the end, like the last 2 or 3 weeks, so it's not gonna hurt you.
Maybe I was thinking doing the 3 next assignments like in a week, so I can.
Yeah, and actually the exercise assignments, they're not hard, and the reason let's just talk about it. So the exercises are designed to kind of help you in the front part of the book, like the first few chapters. And then the assignment that I'm giving you is actually a practical assignment that I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things that I'll talk about here in the end. And I'm actually writing it up and I'm going to post it on Moodle today as well. So let's talk about the exercises. It's not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. This particular class is broken up into, as you can tell by the book, the chapters are broken up into like the assessments and testing based on if it's behavioral testing or if it's personality, intelligence, marriage and family. There's school counseling material. There's DSM discussion. There's talk a little bit about like how electronic testing has been applied. And then there's talk about like the history of testing and assessments. I'm not going to jump into that specifically, but everything else we'll kind of broadly cover pretty much for the most part. And the exercises themselves, and I'm just going to share. Let me get over here and I want to pull this up real quick. There's a page on here on Moodle. Basic. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see this, and I can make it bigger if I need to. There we go. Okay. But I like to see everyone too. Okay. Can everyone see that, hopefully? Okay. The first part's not changing. this assessment chart assignment is going away. We're not doing it. So, and I'm going to make all these changes today to everyone. And I go ahead and send your emails and gripe at me. That's fine. You're going to be glad I changed it. Just believe me. You can ask any other students that takes this class. This assignment for some reason gives everyone a lot of trouble. And especially during the summer, I think it's going to be too much of a strain for us. So I'm going to try to do something a lot more practical, and I'll talk about it here in a second. The exercises are listed in the descriptions right here. And then what I've done is I've gone ahead and listed all the exercise questions here on the same page. They're on Moodle as well. Like when you go on to the assignment, you can see them listed there as well. All right. So it's 2 parts. So you're going to submit the question and the answers to the questions to me. Right. There's 3 sets of questions. And then the forum discussion, which is really important to an online class, I think, is listed on Moodle. I didn't put them on here, and it's just 1 question each time. It's like sometimes it's one of these questions that I've listed. Hey, let me know, is assessment part of counseling? If so, what role does it play? That might be a forum discussion. You'll just say, hey, yeah, it's important, or it's not, or here's why it is, that kind of thing. This coincides with a lot of the first part of the book. These questions do. We're actually going to talk about these questions next week. We're going to get into reliability and validity, and like the first part of the book, like the first 3 or 4 chapters, we're going to cover next week actually. And then these last ones kind of talk about the initial phase, and then there's a little bit of discussion about like looking at standardized testing kinds of stuff. We talk about the GRE, which we'll talk about in class as well. So these questions, the due dates for them are listed here. And as you can see, they're pretty stacked at the first part of the semester. I might change this last one, but I kind of like the cadence because the back part of the semester typically for people is a lot busier. And so I kind of wanted you guys, I gave you, if you want, and Rosa's actually doing this, if you wanted to answer all these this week, you could do it. I don't, the answers are in the first 5 or 6 chapters of the book. Now, not everyone's going to do that. No one has time to do that. Not everyone has time. That's fine. But you answer them, turn those into me. Like the first one's due June 25th. And then it's if you have me for lifespan, it's similar to a lifespan, kind of how the cadence works. You have a week basically to post comments to the forum. Each assignment is like that, exactly the same. Does that make sense? Okay. Here's the description here. And so this page has got the description and the due dates. And like I said, disregard this assessment chart. If you're watching from home, again, just disregard the assessment chart table assignment. I've actually erased it from Moodle. And so we're only going to do these assignments. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to stop sharing so I can describe this to you. What we're going to do is a couple of things. I started doing for this particular class about 6 or 7 years ago when we were still meeting in person. I started doing a mock session, like an opening initial session. Like as a student was a client, I did a session like I would any session. And I've kept doing that for the online classes as well. And so I do it every semester just to show like, hey, what does an opening session look like? That's kind of how it started. And just to give everyone just a look at counseling, basically. One of the things that we struggle to do here at Amberton, all the professors talk about it, we all struggle to try to make things as practical as we can. And this is one way to do that, just to show, because a lot of programs, you might start seeing clients in your 2nd or 3rd semester. And so you might observe for a while and then you start seeing clients. So I wanted to try to replicate that as much as I could. So this semester, we're going to do that. One of the classes, not the next one, but the 3rd one, the 3rd class in July is going to be me doing a session with a student, whoever volunteers, about 30 or 45 minutes, something like that. So the first part of the class, the first hour will be that session. And then the second hour will be kind of processing, but I'm going to give everyone a chance to kind of do their own little mock sessions with each other, like 5 or 10 minute little sessions. So part of the assignment will be to match up with a student. And we might, this is where it gets wonky, because we have an even number right now, which is awesome, but we might not have an even number in 2 weeks because sometimes people drop out. And I think there might be a wait list too. So we'll see how that kind of pans out. Well, basically, I'll just match you. I'll do it so you don't have to worry about it. I'll just match you. You can do it over Zoom, and you just do a session, and I'll kind of give you like a template to follow. You'll do those sessions with each other, and it'll be like an initial session. And based on some of the checklists that you'll find in the book, which we'll talk about, you can just kind of do that session. It just gives you practice to do it. And then one person will do it, and then you'll switch. The other person will do it. And then the second part of the assignment will be those same people will give each other an assessment. And I'm gonna do the Hearth Hope inventory. It's super easy to do, and it's easy to score, and it's easy to give feedback on, because I want you to do 2 things. I want you to give the assessment and give the feedback of the results, because that's really important. And so that's going to take the place of the chart table assignment. It's a little more practical. I think you'll like it. Now some people hear this and go, oh shoot, I'm going to do, a session with someone. It's not going to be hard. But I want you to start getting practice, basically. Basically, I want you to start practicing. Does that make sense to everyone?
Are we recording the?
Yes. I want you to record it, right? So I can see it. And that's why it's only going to be 30 minutes a piece. It's not going to be long, and that sounds long. Does that sound long to anyone? Hopefully not. It's not long. Like, we've been going 15 minutes so far. I mean, it's pretty, like I do between 50 and 60 minute sessions typically, and it's like, it just flies, right? But I wanted to try to give you guys something practical to do. And I think this will be a good thing. So I will match you up, so you'll get a partner. I'm going to wait that's why I'm kind of put it towards the end of the semester, because I'm kind of waiting to see who's in the class, because there might be a group of 3, mostly groups of 2. There might be a group of 3 in it, but I'm trying to kind of see if we have an even number. That's awesome. We can just do groups of 2, and then I'll just randomly pair you. I'll shoot you guys a message. Hey, here is who you're paired with, and then you guys can communicate. Set your own time, right? And you'll have a due date. Hey, I need you to turn it in by this date. You'll just turn the recording in. That's it. Make sense? Any question about that?
Just to confirm, the due dates are all going to be towards the end.
Yeah.
Because I'm also traveling for a couple of weeks in the middle of this class. So.
Yep. I'm doing all of the due dates like the last 2 or 3 weeks of class. And honestly, I mean, I know this sounds weird, but you guys I'm going to post these instructions and everything today. The only reason why I'm waiting, and I would have done that even if this assignment was assigned from the very beginning, I would have waited a week or so, because I'm not sure who's in the class yet. Because this class all the classes we kind of settle after about a week or so. So I will send everyone who you're paired with within the by the next time. Probably within the next 2 weeks, you'll know who you're paired with. Okay.
Dr. Bedard, I had a question. I'm taking a Saturday class in person at the Frisco campus every other Saturday, and it's at this time.
Yep.
Okay. So that's not going to conflict with. Okay.
Yeah. Is it Saturday 1 or 2? Saturday 2.
Saturday 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm recording everything we do. The difference between today and every other class will be we're covering material heavy. Today is more like, hey, welcome everybody. Here's what we're doing. Here's the expectation. Everything else will be like next week we jump into reliability and validity for the first part. The second part will be like something different in a couple of different chapters. Okay, but I'll record everything so you can see it, because we run into this all the time where some people are taking, especially in the summer, if you're a teacher, a lot of teachers take a ton of classes or as many as they can. We all literally were like, let's just set the dates because we can't figure out a good cadence so that you guys don't miss stuff. And so I'll record everything for you. That's a long answer to a short question, but I will record it. Has anybody else got other Saturday classes? Rachel? Okay. All right. Any questions about that assignment at all? Okay. Okay. If you're watching from home and you know you're going to travel towards the end of the semester, please reach out to me and I will help you figure out how to do this assignment that I just mentioned, because I realize people are traveling and I realize this wasn't on the syllabus at the beginning. I get it. So it's kind of I'm calling it audible here. So just reach out to me. I'm sure we can figure it out. Like Rosa's going to be out of the country. Like she's has the trip that we all want to be on, but she didn't invite any of us to go.
I'm going to be out of the country too. So
Susan, same thing. So you both you're going to make a C already. You have to really work hard.
It's a little split the same. I've been planning it since before COVID, but
Yeah.
I'm so glad for your flexibility, because it's a little stressful to think, will I ever be able to access the internet during that time?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you guys don't freak out. Summer we have to be flexible in the summer. Just I'm traveling too. I mean, this isn't, this is what it is. But we still have to keep structure of the class as much as we can. And so I can be flexible. Here's the other thing. And then I'm going to talk about the exams. Because in the summer, sometimes because people travel, if you get behind in the assignments, and I get this question all the time, towards the end, like I'm behind, can I get an incomplete? If I get an incomplete, what does that look like? In order to take an incomplete in the class, you have to at least done at least half of the assignments. Like you can't just like do nothing, show up at the end and say, hey, I wanted incomplete. That doesn't work. So you have to at least show, you've done over at least half the assignments, preferably more than that. And then we kind of make a plan to finish them up. This happens a lot in the summer because people travel. No one in this class is going to do that because everyone in this class is rock stars and you're going to finish everything in a month and then you're going to just hang out for the rest of summer. You can do whatever you want. All right. Now let's talk about the exams. The exams have study guides, right? So the midterm has a study guide, the final has a study guide. The first exam is 80 questions, and it's the first part of the book. The second exam is comprehensive, 100 questions. So some questions from the midterm are in the final. The reason I did that is because some of the material I think is really important to cover both ways. And we wanted to make sure that we have a good understanding of it. Now, having said that, if you've had my classes before, you realize that you can use the study guide, you can use the book, you can
Take this shit out.
you can use the book, you can use the study guide, but you can't like phone a friend. You got to do your own work. The exams will open on a Friday and we'll close on a Wednesday. So Wednesday night, 11:59. That's for the midterm and the final. There's a link. It's an online exam. So you click on the link, you'll enter your information, create a username and password. You'll start the exam. If you want to stop, you can log out. Your time will stop. It'll stop where you are in the exam. When you log back in, it'll pick back up. When you're finished with the exam, it'll give you the grade right away and it'll send me an email saying you finished. I know some people get really paranoid that I don't know what's happening and send me a screenshot of the grade. You can do that if that makes you feel better. I'm all about helping your anxiety as much as if that makes you anxious, that's cool. That's cool with me. I'm going to see it anyway. So, all right. This class is also geared towards, like I said before earlier, helping us in the counseling world and the school counseling world, which are there's a little bit of overlap. We do talk about each world. So licensed professional counselors, LMFTs, and school counselors. Every once in a while we have people that are crossover, just taking it as an elective, but that doesn't happen very much. Most everyone here is in one of those buckets. So I try to hit a little bit for each one of those buckets for you. And we also will discuss, like, as a master's level student, when you graduate, there's some assessments and testing that you can do because of your master's degree. But there's some assessments and testing that you will not be able to do because you're not a licensed psychologist, let's say. The book talks about that too, different levels, level 1, 2, and 3, and you'll read about it, but we'll talk about it as well. For example, there's an assessment called MMPI, which is a 567 question assessment. Unless you get further certification in that, you cannot do that as a master's level student. Myers-Briggs is the same thing. You have to get certified in Myers-Briggs, which is a personality inventory, right? So there'll be some. 90% of everything you'll be able to do as a master's level student. You'll be able to give the assessment. Basically anything you can read a manual for, you can give the assessment, you can score it, and you can give the feedback. And so we'll focus on those, especially that last assignment I just described is really going to be focusing on giving an assessment to your partner, scoring it, and then giving feedback on the assessment, which is really, really important. A lot of times in this class, we come in thinking, oh, we're going to learn about these assessments and how to do them and what to give. That is true. We're going to learn that, but we also need to learn how to give feedback. Like, how do you report if someone scores? Like, I had this happen not too long ago where I gave someone an assessment and they scored really high on the depression scale. They didn't score high on any other scales, but the depression scale was really high, like moderate, almost bordering on severe. So you have to be able to give feedback on that as someone looks at that. Someone that looks at that might want to know what's this mean? Like, all these numbers, what do they mean? Every once in a while you'll have clients that'll say, how do we know that this is accurate? Like, what, someone just make this up? I mean, some guy in a room just made up a bunch of questions and given it. Well, that's absolutely never the case. Every assessment that especially the book talks about, and there's a ton of them in the book, they're all like, to develop an assessment takes 2 to 5 years. It's not like we just sit down and write up a bunch of questions and then that's the assessment. You can do that. Facebook is super famous for having links to tons of those, and you can Google different ones and you can look at all the different ones that are out there, but if they're not reliable and they're not valid, then they're not worth our time, basically. So people that develop assessments and then redevelop them, right? So maybe they were normed on a certain population of people, or a certain, let's say, especially if they're developed early, like 50s, 60s, 70s, they might have been normed on mainly a Caucasian population. Well, a lot of those have been renormed now on a more diverse population. So they're more reliable, more valid for our current time, if that makes sense. Some assessments that you'll read about have been translated into other languages. So they had to be renormed because of that, because some languages have certain words that we don't have and vice versa, right? So you have to think through some of those things. And you'll read about this, we'll talk about it. So basically I'm bringing that up because as you have clients, some of them might be a little leery, cynical about an assessment, right? It just takes a long time to develop an assessment. So we learn, first of all, what we'll focus on next week is something reliable. In other words, can I give it over and over and over? I'm going to get basically the same results, accurate results. Is it valid? Is it testing on the thing it's saying it's testing on? Like, is it assessing what it's supposed to be assessing, right? If those two things are happening, it's a good assessment. And we can tell that statistically, and we'll talk about all that next week. All right. Okay. So any questions about the exams or any of the assignments or anything?
Are the assignments APA style?
Yeah, these particular ones are not. I mean, they're short answer questions, right? And I know you're getting the answer from like our textbook. So now, and I say this in other, other classes, if you answer one of the questions and you've gone outside the textbook and it's not your opinion, like you didn't come up with it, you need to cite it, obviously. I'm not sure how you guys have time to go look at a bunch of sources and cite them, but maybe you do. Maybe you're an overachiever. Maybe you want extra credit somehow, and you just go and you spend your time looking at, you have a lot of time and you just like, I want to go and research this one question and see if I can find whatever source I can find. Then you need to cite it. No one's going to do that, I don't think. Hopefully not.
I have a question about the textbooks.
Yeah.
If I have a slightly older edition, do you think that would be okay?
Is it 14?
No, I think it's 18. No, I might be thinking about lifespan because I'm in that too, and I don't remember.
Man, that's a great question. I think it's 15. Is it 15? Are we on 15 for this? Lifespan is different.
Hold on a second. I have the syllabus and I can tell you.
Michelle, you're throwing us off.
This is counseling, right? Not like lifespan is in half an hour.
You got it.
Okay. It says edition 5. Sorry.
5th edition.
I was thinking about the lifespan book. Yeah. The syllabus says 5, but I think I have
5th.
4.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Thank
Terry,
you.
hold yours up. Terry, hold yours up. Is that a softback? Yeah, paperback. They make it in I think there's an electronic one now too. I think you can get. I'm sorry, the books are expensive. I can't do anything about it.
I rented it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can rent it. Yeah. The 4th edition's fine. There is added material in the 5th edition. I cover some of it. There might be a test question or two on there as well on the final. And the order of reading is different in the 5th edition and the 4th edition. Like the ethics and the behavioral assessments maybe are at the beginning instead of the end. Like the 4th and 5th, they flip-flop those. It's basically the same information. There's some statistics that are different. You're not going to need to know like a bunch of formulas, so don't freak out about that. There's a ton of them at the first of the book. The first 4 chapters of the book, pretty boring, I'm not going to lie, just because there's a lot of like number information and history and formulas and things like that. You don't need to know the formulas. Don't worry about that. And we'll go over a lot of that next time. So did anyone have trouble getting the book by any chance? Okay, good.
I just wonder, do you recommend us to buy it? I mean, we want to use it like in the future, or sometimes I wonder like it's better to buy it than.
The only reason people buy it is if you need to, like if you're going to study for the exam, as we get to the end of your time, when you take one of the exams,
Okay.
the information in there can be helpful.
Okay.
But I think it's a preference. I know some students rent them. Like I have students that rent books every time. Some students buy them. I think it's a preference. I've kept every book I've ever, like all my textbooks. I don't know why. I just did. You never know when you're going to need something on page 233 on the bottom paragraph in the second line. You might need it one day. Terry is cynical, or she's like, nah, I don't think so. Yeah. So I was a youth pastor before I started this. So I had all those books too for a long, long time. And I finally let go of them. It was like breaking up like with that part of me or something. It was weird, but I kept some of them. Okay. Any questions about anything else?
Well, I have one question. On the forum, I know how we post our own, we answer the question. I think we're also supposed to comment on other people's, like a couple of comments.
Yeah, 1 or 2 comments is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the forums are really good. I don't always comment, but I read the forums. I mean, I think they're really good. There's a lot of really good discussion on the forums a lot of times. I think the forums in this class specific, like all the online classes, it's like how we kind of connect with each other. And so that helps a lot. And I've taken discussion, like class discussion topics from the forum too. Just if someone brings up, like you can tell, like if someone makes a bunch of comments, I usually go to that one. If there's a ton of them, usually that's a good, seems like maybe a good question or comment that's made about it. And those comments, like there's a question that you'll answer when you post your forum answer or response. It doesn't have to be super long. You just answer it. And you can, that's also a place where you can kind of like, here's my opinion about that, or here's what I think, or I will say that just obviously we need to remain, nice we can disagree. That's cool. I don't mind that, but let's, be courteous. We can courteously disagree with each other. It's okay. Civil discourse is kind of an important thing. All right. Any other questions about any of those things? All right. So here's what I'd like to know from everyone coming into the class. Like, are there things, and I realize everyone here probably has to take the class. I get it. You're here because you have to, but are there things that you're like, hey, I'd like to learn this, or I'd like to know more about these things? Are there expectations, or whether they're, learning expectations that you have, or questions that you have about this topic that you're hoping that we kind of talk about? Are there anything like that for anyone?
What about testing children? I mean, it's covered in the book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We go toddler to.
Okay, great.
To the end. I mean, in working with children in this area is very specific. Same with teenagers, same with adults, same with families, same with marriages, right? So yeah, we will definitely talk about that for sure.
I'm interested in academic assessments and how their validity and reliability is tested.
Like which ones, Michelle, are there ones you're thinking about?
Well, I don't know. I've heard lots of things throughout the years of being a teacher. I have been a teacher for a very long time, and I'm taking a break right now, but specifically like the STAR test and stuff like that. When I saw how much money the state of Texas was given to Pearson, I was like, well, how rigorously do they test these things? Like, how do we know that they're valid?
Yeah, so STAR tests, like other measurement exams, are standardized, right? So we're looking at scoring based on standard scoring, based on who's the standard? Where does it come from? How do we get the standard? Does the standard change? Is the standard fair?
Yeah.
For all populations? And those are all validity and reliability questions, right? So just in full disclosure, the STAR, that the information and statistical properties of the STAR exam are a little bit difficult to find.
Okay.
That particular exam gives lots of people heartburn for different reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so we will talk about maybe not specifically that one, but we will talk about standardized testing.
Okay.
And how do we like criterion-based testing?
Yeah.
Non-reference testing. I mean, we're going to talk about a whole lot of different things and what falls in those categories.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that bothered me was a few years back, they were talking about testing second graders as well and extending it downwards. And I know that some of the things that they test for on the STAR are not developmentally appropriate. So that was just a frustration from the years of teaching. even though I teach art,
Yeah.
Part of my job is to back up
Yeah.
the other teachers and try to use some of the same concepts and be cross-curricular and all that. So
sure. Well, I think one of the big, so if y'all have had me before, this is rabbit trail. So just buckle up for this one. One of the things that's happened over time also is that our testing in America, or at least in Texas, has gotten more algebraic, right? So we've gone to more word problems, we've gone to more variable focus. And so that affects lots of things, right? Reading, comprehension, writing, and math, right? So we've gone that direction. So if you have a kid that's delayed in one of those areas, it affects several things, right? So versus focusing heavily on, our class focuses on this and that's what we do. And we're trying to cross focus in a lot of different ways. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is when we talk about standard, like what the standard is, whatever that is, some of the standardized testing is not necessarily just developmentally inappropriate, but it might not be appropriate. Like we have diverse populations in Texas. We have non-English speaking students, right? And non-English speaking parents, that some of the testing is not appropriate for them because of that too. So there's lots of things to think about. And I don't think we probably haven't come up with a great solution and we're never going to come up with a solution that satisfies everybody.
true.
Right. So I don't think we should be non-testing, which I don't think anyone wants to, you know what I mean? Like no one's like, hey, let's throw out all the testing. No one's that extreme. But to your point, what are we trying to do? And what is this doing? And is this getting us where we want to go, basically?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And the fact that, I don't know if anybody knows this out who's not a teacher, but kids have a 2-year deadline to start taking a test in English from the moment they enter the country.
Right.
So like if they go back to Mexico for a year, it counts in their 2 years.
And it's a moving target.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And that might change too.
And I say Mexico because that's what most of my students were as second language speakers.
Well, yeah, but we have people from Central America. We have people from Puerto Rico, Cuba. I mean, Dominican Republic, right? So any Latin speaking country.
Yeah.
We could have students depending on where you are, right?
One of my schools, we had a large Vietnamese population. It just depends what area of the DFW Metroplex you're in.
That's right.
Sorry for that aggression.
No, you're fine. This is stuff we'll talk about. The problem is we can't solve everything. But this particular topic also will come up in other classes. Like if you're in the school counseling path, this will come up again. These will be things you'll be talking about as well. Any other expectations or things you're kind of wanting to know or learn or think about? Or you just want to get the grade and move on?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so assessment seems to require some sort of notion of normality, right? And, I'm kind of just thinking about postmodernism and sort of the rejection of this idea of normalcy and how assessment counseling works to address the idea of normal versus common, right?
Yep.
Is that question clear?
Absolutely. It's a great question. So that question has two parts. The first part is when you take Dr. Armstrong's basically DSM class, abnormal. It's not really abnormal, but it's psychology. Like I can't remember what he calls it. I call it abnormal psychology. Like looking at different disorders, right? When we think about assessing for something, we're either assessing against a norm, like you were saying, like a standard score, let's say, which could be intelligence or personality, aptitude, things like that. But then also in mental health, this is the second part. In mental health, we have some criteria that we have to meet in order to reach a diagnosis, let's say, right? So if someone is presenting to you with maybe depressive symptoms or anxious symptoms, PTSD, things like that, luckily we have a DSM that gives us like, hey, in order to meet this diagnosis, we have to hit these threshold things. There's a time, there's a timing of it, most of the time like within the last 2 weeks kind of thing. There's also an intensity, right? So how intense or severe the symptoms are. And then is it clinically significant, which is in this case, that's kind of where the DSM comes in and says, like for depression, there's basically like 19 different criteria. You have to meet X amount of those before you're diagnosed with depression, if that makes sense. So we do have some things to kind of look at in terms of like what's normal and abnormal. You'll talk a lot more about abnormal and normal, like in terms of mental health in Dr. Armstrong's class than we will in here. We won't go into a lot of that in here. But to go further, I guess, Andrew, and answer a little bit more along the lines of, I think also what you're asking. When we're assessing someone or doing a test, we're not like condemning them to something. We're trying to get a snapshot of what's going on. And when we get a snapshot of what's going on, we have a better shot at helping them, basically. For example, my son struggled starting in 4th grade mysteriously. He did fine first, second, third. In 4th grade, he hit a wall and started struggling. One thing we didn't know until later, his teacher was really not very good. We didn't know that until like the next year. So we had him assessed. When we had him assessed, we found out that his cognitive processing speed was slow. And he had some symptoms of ADHD. So he technically reaches a limit of ADHD, not the hyperactivity, but the being kind of losing attention and losing focus and being unable to concentrate and things like that. So we found out those things. So once we found those things out, as parents, we could go, okay, wait a minute, his brain works this way. So we need to get help in helping him discover that his brain works this way. So he needs to do these things, or he needs to study this way, or he needs to take breaks this way, that kind of thing, right? Same thing if you're working with anybody you guys work with, like I work with couples a lot. When I work with couples and I'm listening to them and I'm viewing them and I might give them an assessment and I see that every couple I ever work with wants to work on communication. All of them say that. Well, what does that mean? Like mainly, like how well do you listen is what I look for. And so I'm kind of evaluating or assessing if they hear each other correctly or the way that they want to be heard, right? So if they're not, then what's getting in the way of that? If you're working with someone and they are depressed and you give them an assessment to look at depression and you found out they're depressed, and there's a reason why they're irritable. There's a reason why they're sleeping all the time. There's a reason why they're having trouble concentrating, right? There's lots of reasons why. Once you figure that out, then you can start helping them figure those things out and how to kind of change their cognitions, right? Like then you start restructuring cognitions to help them kind of get pushed through some of those things. And so we probably won't talk about like normal, abnormal per se, like in a postmodern, modern sense, but we will talk about like standards and like cutoff scores, and we're like kind of looking at a range of things like in depression and anxiety, kind of like on the spectrum, there's a continuum or a range, right, that someone's on. Like someone could be mild or moderate or severe, and those things mean we do different things with them, kind of thing. So a lot of this will make a lot more sense as we go through. Andrew, does that answer your question at all? I feel like I rambled around there.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question.
I had a question. Sorry about I think you kind of hit it there in the range. I am interested in more information about how let me think of how to word this, how we take the assessment for what it is worth and not, I think sometimes it can be a tendency to label and take the assessment as sort of the whole picture. And then I do think on any given day, like we were talking about the STAR test, for example, but I feel like even in some of the tests we might use with our clients in the future in counseling, some days those can be different. I know that there's,
yeah, they're just snapshots in time, right?
Mhm.
So if we wanted to be really accurate, we would actually assess multiple times to get multiple points, right? If you work in certain organizations, they'll assess a lot, multiple times, like maybe every session, so that you start to get a graph and you can start looking at progress or not, or not progress, or how things are trending. And so we have to focus on the fact that if something's reliable and valid, then it's worth our time. Also realizing that, to your point, maybe they just had a bad day that day, right? So there's things called errors. Some of them are unsystemic. So I'm giving you the answer to one of the questions. Unsystemic error is something we have to account for. And that's what basically reliability and validity show. How do we account for things that we can't control, right? So we're trying to assess something that's not a perfect assessment. Like, how do you put a number on depression? So out of 10, I feel 7. Was it 7.143? Is it 7.0? Is it 6.98? It's not like physics, right? It's not like if I get in my car, I'm on 0 and I go 60, I go 0 to 60. But we don't know if someone's feeling depressed or anxious. Is it a 10? Is it an 8? Is it 8.3578? You know what I'm saying? Like it's not, so we have to be able to account for that. And how we account for that is statistically looking at it and saying, okay, this is within a margin, which is usually 0.05. We look at a margin and we look at numbers and how those numbers look statistically. We basically can say, hey, you'll find this out basically when you see the numbers. If a assessment is like 0.85, that means it's 15% error, which sounds like a lot, but in the testing world, 0.85 is extremely accurate. So the closer we get to 1.0, which no assessment is 1.0, because you can't account for every single error, right? Because someone today might feel good, tomorrow might feel horrible, right? So there's going to be unsystemic error. So we account for those things by looking at the coefficients of validity and reliability. That's how we do it. For those that love statistics, this is so exciting. For those that don't, you're like, oh my gosh, are we really going to talk? It's like, I think I might sleep through this. The only reason why it's important is because that tells us if something's a good assessment or not, or if we can trust it. We have to trust it first, right? The client might not trust it. I can't do anything about that. But if I don't trust it, the client for sure won't trust it. Does that make sense? Any other big questions we got? All right.
Is it 4 or 5 Zoom classes that you're going to do? I think it's
4.
4. Okay.
Yeah. I think we have this one, and then next week, we have basically one a month, basically, and then this one makes 4. So we'll basically meet once a month. Some of you, like Michelle, will get to see me for like 4 hours. You're going to love it. It's great. Totally different class too. Totally different.
Thank you for taking the time to do the in-person online
Yeah.
intro, because I think it makes me feel like, oh, I get what's going on in the beginning of the class, rather than just the online can be a little difficult when you're trying to figure it out all by yourself at the beginning. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah. One of the things that's come out of COVID is we all do these now. We didn't do this before. Well, we didn't have the technology either, to a certain extent. So we just didn't do it. But I think all the professors do something video now if it's an online class. So, and we'll probably see more hybrid kind of things too, where there'll be some in session, like in person, and some online. There'll be a mixture of that, which is good, I think. Do any of you live outside of DFW by any chance? I'm just curious. Or is everyone kind of in? I know DFW is big, but is everyone in the area? Okay. Because we have students that come from all over. So I'm always curious about that. Okay. Is anyone here right now in the school counseling path?
I am.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
haven't decided yet.
Okay. Is anyone here LPC? And that could be school counseling too.
So far.
Okay. Is anyone doing LMFT? Ryan gets an A, automatic. Okay, great. Okay. I can't think of anything else. I think that's it. I will post the instructions for the new assignment. I'll post those today. You'll see those. And my goal would be to pair you guys up as quick as I can. I just got to wait and kind of see what happens with our enrollment. In the summer, it just kind of gets wonky. And so hopefully there won't be a lot of change, but sometimes it changes a little bit. Right now we have an even number, which is awesome. We can do, groups of 2. All right. Okay. Next week, it's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. A lot of stats, a lot of like research methods. I mean, you're just going to be so excited. It's going to happen. You're going to love it. Next week is the week. Next week is the week I see no one's face. Everyone goes on, turns their video off, and just goes and does stuff around the house. I'm convinced that's what's happening. All right. Hey, you guys have a good rest of the weekend, and I'll see you next week.
Okay. See you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.